Hello, welcome to the Church of Christ Online. Today, I will demystify the issue of the transformation of a nation. The key structure of all the units within a nation, according to the Bible, comprises three critical components: administration, money management, and spiritual management or religion. For all three, if we can understand the key to unlocking their mechanism, all the units would be modified and improved, like a chain reaction that affects even the smallest sub-units of a nation. What is that key? First, the key that you will learn today, which even the very wealthy around the world remain ignorant of. Second, the key that you will hear about today, which even religious leaders from all the religions have yet to hear about. Third, the key that you will understand today, which even national leaders have yet to understand. Regarding the truth of the spiritual world, which most people still misunderstand, we will provide training at 4 levels. Level 1, the spirit of the self, is called A1. Level 2, the higher spirit of the worldly, which leads us toward success, is called A2. Level 3, the pure spirit, which is the teaching of all the prophets, is called A3. And level 4, the combined spirit of God and the prophets, is called A4. Therefore, spiritual management comprises 4 levels that we'll be training for. It's not that these spirits have never existed. In the past, the prophets created them, but these spirits have since been lost. Therefore, we would like to use the example of the prophets to educate you, to enable you to receive the light of the prophets. First, the key that even the very wealthy around the world remain ignorant of is that everything, including life itself, was created to contain an internal part and an external part. The very wealthy only consider the creation of external assets, but they do not focus on the creation of internal treasure. Ultimately, all external wealth is impermanent. As the tycoon of Central Group, the Kairathavat family, writes in a book, a family business only lasts for 3 generations, which is true around the world. The first generation establishes the business. They possess the high-level spirit that brings the business into being. The second generation expands the business and learns about the operations. Profiting from the advice of the first generation, they receive the external spirit and part of the business. But mostly, the internal spirit is not transmitted to them. Finally, the third generation is the generation that lives more comfortably, enjoyably, and conveniently. They will take up the mantle fully when the first and second generations are gone. This causes the spirit, which lacks the internal and external parts, to fall into a state of suffering when they do take up the mantle and face business problems. Don't forget that for huge businesses, the problems that must be tackled are correspondingly huge. Often, the third generation would decide to sell the business to make money, so that they could avoid taking up the mantle and persevering through the hardships of running that business. Let me give the example of CP Group. Mr. Danan Chiravanant transmitted the internal spirit by getting his children to create new businesses that he also controls or helps to guide. Once the children have created successful new businesses, they themselves essentially become the pioneering first generation. In this way, a sustainable cycle is created. A contrasting example is Elon Musk, one of the world's billionaires, who is a father to young children, but who said that he wanted to establish a special school for his children. This may end up ruining his children because they would lack the social skills to interact with friends and other members of society. Therefore, good transmission of the internal spirit will enable children to come into their inheritance. But if done poorly, it may result in the ruin of the next generation. Finally, when the internal wealth or the spirit of the first generation, which created the wealth, has decayed, all the wealth that was arduously amassed over a lifetime would also deteriorate, such as impermanence. This is so because of external visions that confuse the eye, that obscure and distort, preventing the next generation from understanding the heavenly treasure, as all the prophets similarly taught that true succession is the inheritance of the internal spirit, which is the inherited wealth, the heavenly wealth that is steadfast. This is the key to enduring transmission and inheritance. No matter for how many generations, it will endure, as God demonstrates to us through the natural world. Second, the key that even religious leaders have yet to hear about. This is the part that is overlooked in all religions, leading to fruitless application of the teachings and enormous opportunity costs to individuals and the world in general. It is the internal part, which is the Spirit of God and the prophets. In the beginning, God's breath instilled the image and character of God within human beings, so that the Spirit of God and the pure Holy Spirit would reside within humans. The prophets from all the religions have dedicated their entire lives to the study, pursuit, and propagation of this pure Holy Spirit through their teachings. The first disciples externalized it into something tangible, that is, the Bible, Tripitaka, and the holy books of each religion. Therefore, as a symbol that conveys the Spirit of God and the Spirit of the prophets, I use A4. For the pure Holy Spirit in the holy teachings, I use A3. Religions preserve only the external shell, which is the body of knowledge, regarding external things, such as rights, and is symbolized by A2. The human soul, which is the diverse body of knowledge about external things, is symbolized by A1. Thus, only the external part of religious structures has been passed on, while the internal part, A4 and A3, the essence of religion, has been lost. When the internal part, which is the spiritual part, is not transmitted, the result is the worldly decay of the present day, as is the case with the billionaires' businesses. I have discussed the issue of spiritual inheritance. There are 4 levels of formulas: level A1, level A2, level A3, and level A4. We have categorized them into 2 parts. The external part comprises A1 and A2, and the internal part comprises A3 and A4. Therefore, when I explain that the internal part has disappeared, I'm referring to this part. Third, the key that even national leaders have yet to understand and translate into action is what creates the difference between the most advanced nations and nations whose peoples are in dire straits and must rely only on themselves. It is the internal part or the spirit of the leader. When the internal spirit of the leader is of high caliber, the result that they achieve will be correspondingly solid and enduring. It will last for 30 years or 50 years. But as for certain leaders, their completed projects collapse even before widespread use or ultimately prove infeasible, leading the country towards gradual decline. Such as impermanence. Even nations that are most highly developed will surely face decline someday. Because national leaders around the world do not yet understand that all things comprise 2 parts. When the important internal part is lacking, national leadership is consequently unsustainable. We can see examples in many countries. The key that the leader must possess is the Spirit of God, A4, and the pure Holy Spirit, A3, which will transform the nation into heaven on earth. When there are leaders like this in many nations, the world will be transformed into heaven on earth, or what the Bible calls the Garden of Eden. For this topic, I would like to use the example of the Middle Eastern countries, each of which is wealthy. However, when the leader does not lead well, this brings about internal strife or various forms of conflicts that ruin the nation. It is like the nation lacks security of life and livelihood, making life a living hell of suffering. Even for Thailand, we can give the following example. If we have a prime minister or national leader who is incompetent, the nation would remain in an underdeveloped or developing status, but never attain a developed status. However, if we have a quality national leader who is competent and effective, this would lead our nation towards progress, so that the people would live comfortably. Take Singapore, for example, which could raise its people out of poverty and attain a wealthy status. Nevertheless, through all the ages, the prophets affirmed that we must prevail over ourselves first. Therefore, at the Church of Christ Online, we will train and strengthen the human spirit to reach the level of globally renowned individuals. I will reveal the secrets to creating and developing the spirit in order to become spiritual leaders in accordance with the way of God, secrets which are distilled from experience and devoted study of over 30 years, and which will work for you. You will understand the pure Holy Spirit, according to the teachings and the Spirit of God, the Spirit of the prophets, A4. This is something that has vanished from the world today, and only we here can give all of you the knowledge to become spiritual leaders according to all the scriptures, as Jesus Christ wished or hoped for you to walk in his footsteps, so that you will become the salt and light in successfully carrying out the mission of the Great Commission and bringing the crucial key, which is the teachings, infused with the pure Spirit of God, to all nations. It is to preserve the various matters that Jesus Christ taught. Once the world becomes more spiritually advanced, we will all receive blessings and graces together. It is the stability and power of the nation, of the world, which will be passed on to future generations, with the goal of transforming the nation into a prototype for the heavenly nation that, in turn, will lead to the transformation of the other 200 nations in the world, bringing about heaven on earth within our generation. Everyone who is watching this video clip, please help us to share the Church of Christ online, so that those around you will have the chance to get involved and experience hope and light. Our content is modern, easy to grasp, memorable, and, most importantly, can be applied in real life. When you click share, you are doing good for the world. Because we are not here on earth just to serve ourselves. Rather, God has put us here to do some good for this world. Lastly, I wish that God blesses all of you with success in every way. Once you apply what you learn from the Church of Christ online to your life, it will definitely change for the better. Write to us about these great results at godkingdom@hotmail.com. Let us be a shining light and salt for your country and our world. Thank you for watching and joining us in this video. There are lots of more interesting things to come from this Eden Heavenly Life channel. I hope you would still be with us for the next time. Goodbye.